Welcome back, folks. Professor Almeida here, and in this video I want to walk you through the project I assigned for Access Module 1 in COSA 50. Coming up, you're going to see how Access works, and you're going to learn how to create a table, which is one of 4 objects you're going to learn about in Access. You're going to learn about tables and how they are really the heart of an Access database. And then we'll get into queries, forms, and reports. Now with Access, there is a learning curve, and there are some things that I need to talk about before we dive right into the project. So as before, if you need a break, you always have the pause button. Now we use Access as a rapid app development tool. So if you just want to create a database with predefined structures and rules wrapped in a nice graphical user interface, then Access is perfect for a lot of folks who just want to do that. Of course, there are other solutions out there like SQL Server, which is a lot more involved, but that's way beyond the scope of this course. So again, we're just going to focus on Access, and as you will see, it works very differently from what you have been used to with Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. Among the differences is the fact that you can't readily undo things in Access. And I get this question asked quite a bit when students are working on their projects as to why we can't just go and undo things in Access. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One of them being because of Access being a rapid app development tool, and other reasons also have to do with relationships. And you'll see this later on when we get into chapter 3. With relationships, your tables and other objects can be related to each other. And if you start to undo things, that could break those relationships, especially when it involves different fields that folks may have created in an Access database. Other reasons include Access being more of a transactional kind of environment where you're either fully committed or you're fully rolling back and nothing in between. And then finally, you have to think about the possibility that it might not be just you who is accessing a database. You might have other folks who are also working with that Access database at the same time. And again, you want to minimize any possibility of breakage. So those are some of the reasons why you can't easily undo things. And for that reason as well, you need to be careful and methodical whenever you're working on these projects. And with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. So here I am in my Windows 11 virtual machine. Now with Access, it's only available for Windows, and for a lot of setups out there, Access is not normally included out of the box. So if you need to install Microsoft 365, which includes Access, make sure you go to your Viking portal, click or tap on Microsoft 365, and at the time of this video, this is the Microsoft 365 Copilot dashboard. If you go to Apps, and then you choose Install Apps, from there, Microsoft 365 Apps, and you'll be able to install the entire suite, which includes Microsoft Access. Now, here I am in Canvas. As before, you have your chapter reading, you have your SAM training, and then, of course, a direct link to the Access 1 project. Now, you've seen this before, right? I have the full ebook, and we're only going to focus on the first 3 chapters of Access. So chapter 1 is going to look at databases and working with tables. Chapter 2 is all about queries. And then chapter 3 gets into some basic database management in Access. Here are the objectives for chapter 1. And again, you'll see that this chapter is all about tables. We'll get a little bit into queries, in this case, just setting up a basic query using the wizard, what's called a simple query. And then we'll create a basic form and report just to get your feet wet as far as the other three objects besides tables. So again, by the end of Access Module 1, you should be able to master these concepts. And here we are, Access Module 1, Databases and Database Objects. Here's the project. I'll go ahead and click on Start. Now, when you download your files, especially your start file here, you're going to see a warning pop up. Now, you're going to get this. You want to choose Keep. And this goes for both your start file and the graded summary reports later on. And with that, if you're ready, let's go ahead and begin. Otherwise, you have that pause button. Now would be a good time to take a break so that you have everything ready to go. I'll see you on the other side. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. So as before, double click on your instructions file, and then you'll double click on your start file. So here's the start file. And first thing you'll see here is this security risk. Now, you can ignore this, but I want to show you real quick. If you are having issues with opening up your access file, what you want to do here is right click on your project file, go to properties, and make sure that your project file is unblocked, as you can see here in the general tab. Let's go ahead and hit apply. I'll click OK, and then you can relaunch your start file and you should be good to go. Now you can see that security risk has been replaced with security warning, and you could just click enable content. Now, first things first, as far as getting started, remember, we need to create a backup of this database. Now, here's where things work differently. If you go to the File tab and choose Save As, you'll see that this screen looks different. Okay, so you want to stick with Save Database As, and we'll leave this by default, Access Database. Choose Save As. Now, pay attention to where you are here. This is the Documents folder. Okay, so when you downloaded your project file, it's in Downloads, but by default, you are in the Documents folder. So make sure you are aware of where you're saving things. I'm going to choose the Downloads folder, and as before, you change the 1 at the end to a 2, and then click Save. You'll see this security warning again, and you'll need to enable content. Now, real quick, you can, of course, right-click and copy from Windows File Explorer. Just be aware that you might have to right-click Properties and make sure that your file isn't blocked. Okay, so you might have to take that extra step. All right, so this is Access, and as before, you have the Quick Access toolbar in the upper left corner. Your title bar here gives you the full path to your Access database. Now you have your Microsoft account, your minimize, maximize, restore down, and close buttons. You have your status bar at the bottom. Of course, you have the ribbon here, but this time you have a navigation pane. And right now it's set to all access objects. You have your tables. You want to leave this first table alone. This one that reads grading info table. Leave that alone. Do not modify it. And for this project, you'll see that you have 3 tables, one for contacts, one for full service, another for West Coast. And we have one form here called full service. So we already have 2 objects here, tables and forms. Let's get into our project instructions and see what our scenario is here. Project steps. Step 1, Connect Marketing Group is a national company that provides marketing services such as customer research, brand building, and merchandising to retail stores. As a sales analyst, you've decided to create an access database to better manage information on clients and services. create a new table in datasheet view with the following options. Now, before we get into these 3 steps, let me take a moment to explain what they mean by datasheet view. So I'm going to open one of the tables just to show you here. This is the contacts table, and if I double click, this is what datasheet view looks like. It's a spreadsheet-like view. Now for the columns, you have what are called fields. So for example, the contact ID number, first name, last name, address, city, state, postal code. These are your fields, and then the rows contain individual records. So they're asking us to create a new table in datasheet view with the following options. Now, to create a new table, we go to the Create tab, and as before, you can just click this away. So in the Create tab Tables group, we're going to choose Table, and this opens this new table here in datasheet view. Now, let's take a look at part A here. Rename the default primary key ID field as company ID and keep it as the primary key with the auto number data type. So what do they mean by primary key? Well, as a student, you have your student ID number, right? Now, if you go to different services on campus, what's the first thing that the folks ask you for? They ask you for your student ID number. That ID number is unique to you, at least it should be. No one else should have access to it, and that student ID number is uniquely tied to you. You can think of that student ID number as the primary key, or that unique identifier in a database. So I hope that this makes some sense here. All right, so they are asking us to rename the ID field. We're going to rename the default primary key ID field as company ID. And as you can see, there's no space. Now, when it comes to best practices for field names, if you want a space, you're going to use an underscore. You cannot start a field name with a number. All right, so we'll right click on the ID field and we will choose rename field, and it's going to be company ID, and then we can hit enter. Ignore this. What you can also do real quick, let me right click and show you. So once you're done renaming a field, you can just hit the down arrow key. Part B, add a new field with the name, company name, and the short text data type. So real quick before I continue, company ID, we're going to keep this as auto number, as you can see here in the formatting group. Now, for part B, add a new field with the name, company name, and the short text data type. So where it says click to add, we're going to choose short text, and we're going to replace field 1 with company name. When you're done, hit the down arrow key. Part C, add a new field with the name retail stores and the number data type. So as before, click to add. We'll choose number, and we'll replace the field name with retail stores. Hit the down arrow key. Save the table using companies as the name. Now, when I go to the quick access toolbar, this save button, unlike in Word, PowerPoint, Excel, we're not saving the file or the database in this case. We're saving the individual object, in this case, the table. So when I click save, I'm going to be prompted to name the table, and we're being asked to call it companies. Now, real quick, as you are working through these steps, make sure that you are double checking your typing, okay? Because if you mistype a field name, or even worse, you mistype the name of an object, the grading engine is just not going to see it at all, and you will lose a good number of points. So take a moment, double check things. Remember, you need to be careful and methodical whenever you're working with an Access database. All right, so how are we doing, folks? If you need a break, you always have that pause button. All right, let's move on to step 2 here. With the company's table still open in datasheet view, add the records shown in table 1. Resize the columns in the datasheet to their best fit, and then save and close the company's table. So you can see here, company ID is going to be auto number. The company name is Diamond Discount, and retail stores 18. So we're just adding one record here. So company ID, we're not worried about this. I'll go ahead and hit the tab key. The company name is Diamond Discount. Now, notice here, I still have the undo button. Okay, so if I make a mistake here, I can undo. And as soon as I hit tab, see how that changed? Retail stores, 18. Now you'll notice that there's a pencil icon here, and this tells you that you are currently editing the record. As soon as I hit the tab key after retail stores, I will have saved the record. So I don't need to use the save button. The save button is here only if I change structural things related to the table, such as adding fields, renaming fields, deleting fields. Maybe I'm resizing columns or I'm changing some kind of property. That's when you use the save button. But if you're entering records, they're saved automatically. Again, I know that this is a learning curve and you're going to have to adjust your thinking when it comes to saving things in Access. All right, moving right along. Resize the columns in the data sheet to their best fit, and then save and close the company's table. So we need to do a best fit on our columns, and this is just like Excel. If I go in between columns, you should see this pointer here change to a double-headed arrow, and if I double click, that does a best fit, just like this. Okay, now because I performed this best fit or auto fit, I need to save the table, and I can just use Control S as a keyboard shortcut. To close the companies table, you can click on the X next to companies. Moving right along to step 3. We're being asked to create another new table, this time in design view, and you're going to store the account data for Connect Marketing clients. So let's see how this looks. If I go to the Create tab, Tables, I'm going to choose Table Design. This is Design View. Personally, I prefer Design View when I'm working with an Access database, but you want to learn how to do both, right? You want to learn how to work with Datasheet View and Design View. Let's see how this works here. Part A, add a field with the name, account number, and the short text data type. So I'm going to click into the cell here under field name in the first row, and it's going to be account number. Again, no spaces. I hit tab, and the data type by default is short text. Now, I can use this drop-down menu if I need to choose something. I can also type out the data type if I want. Now, down below, you'll see the field properties grid here. And as a matter of fact, we'll work with the field properties grid in a moment, but in part B, set account number as the table's primary key. Now, to do that, I need to make sure that I have selected account number. In the Table Design tab Tools group, I'm going to click on Primary Key. Now, I can also right-click on the row and choose Primary Key. That works too. And you'll know that account number is the unique identifier because you should see the primary key icon right here. Part C, change the field size of the account number field to 6. Now, this is one form of data validation. If I go into field properties under field size, you'll see that it's set to 255 characters by default. Well, we want to restrict the number of characters for the account number, and in this case, 6 characters. So this is one form of data validation where someone just can't come along and type whatever they want. In this case, they're restricted to 6 characters. You'll see more about data validation when we get into chapter 3. Save the table with the name accounts, but do not close it. So as before, we click on save in the quick access toolbar, and the table name is going to be accounts. Step 4, with the accounts table still open in design view, add a second field to the table with the field name, company ID, and the number data type. Save the table and then close it. So we go down to the second row here and we type in company ID. We hit tab and the data type is going to be number. Now I could start typing number, or I could choose from the drop down here. Go ahead and click save, and then we can close the accounts table. Now, if you need to reopen the table for whatever reason, if you double click, that takes you to datasheet view. You can right click to open in design view. All right, moving right along. Step 5, we need to do some basic management here. Let's open the contacts table in design view and change the name of the field name first to first name, and use last name to change the name of the field name last. So we need to right click contacts in design view. And to modify the name of the field, you just go into the cell and just start typing like this. So there you go. First name and last name. Step 6, with the contacts table still open in design view, change the data type property for the contact ID field from number to short text. So contact ID is our primary key. Now, if we want to use alphanumeric identifiers, we can change to short text. And you can see in the field properties right now, the default is 255 characters. Step 7, in design view, add a new field to the contacts table after the postal code field. So I'm going to scroll down here and click into the cell below postal code. The field should be named date of birth and have the date, time, data type. Save the contacts table. Again, double check your typing. And this will be date and time. Now, because we've added a new field, remember, if you start to add fields, you modify fields, or if you change properties, you will need to save your table. Step 8, switch the contacts table to datasheet view, navigate to the 5th record, which has a contact ID field value of 20,005, and delete the record. So we need to switch to datasheet view. In the table design tab, views group, go to view, switch to datasheet view, navigate to the 5th record here for Jalen Rhodes, and we're being asked to delete the record. Just like in Excel, you have that right facing arrow, right click on the row, you're going to choose delete record, and you get this warning. You are about to delete one record. If you click yes, you won't be able to undo this delete operation. Are you sure you want to delete these records? So for the reasons I've talked about at the beginning of this video, you can't just undo things, and Access will try to warn you. In this case, if you delete a record, this could affect other objects where that record is present, or if there's some kind of relationship, you're going to have all these different effects. So for that reason, you can't change your mind on this. Normally, we don't delete records in Access unless there is a good reason to. And, this is what our client wants. So remember, there's no going back. But in this case, with this project, we do need to delete the record. All right, so we'll click yes, and that deletes the record for 20,005. Step 9, with the contacts table still open in datasheet view, navigate to the 8th record, 20,009, change the value to Clarkson for the last name field, and then close the contacts table. So in this scenario, someone mistyped the last name, no big deal. I can just go in and make the change. Now, as soon as I click off of this record, okay, let me show you one more time here while I'm still in the last name field for Dante. I can undo the typing, but as soon as I move off this record, it's now saved and I can't undo. Okay, so you need to be careful here. Remember, whenever we're dealing with records, there's no need to save. It's all done automatically. So at this point, we can close the contacts table. All right, how are we doing so far? If you need a break, remember you do have that pause button. All right, step 10. You also need to view individual contact records. Use the form tool to create a form for the contacts table. Save the form with the name contact data entry and confirm that the form matches figure 1. Close the form. So a couple of things here. You can see that your object names lack spaces. Now, when you're creating your own database, you should be consistent with the name of your objects. Now, again, in this project, we have to pretty much follow what's being expected. And if I were creating this database, I wouldn't use spaces, or at least with the other objects, you should use spaces. You need to be consistent either way. But remember, with Access, it's basically a rapid app development tool with a pretty user interface. Okay, so we're just going to stick with the name of the form. Now, to create this form, first we need to select the object it's based on. In this case, it's the contacts table. So I need to make sure that the contacts table is selected. So if it isn't selected, make sure you click on the contacts table. And then from there, go to the Create tab, Forms group, click Form. And let's compare real quick. This is what you should have. And then we'll go ahead and save this form as contact data entry. Contact data entry. And now you'll see that this brand new form that we've created shows up in the forms category. Close the form. And there you go. Step 11, use the simple query wizard to create a query based on the full service table with the following options. So let's back up for a moment here. We don't need to select an object for the query wizard. It's just a matter of going to the Create tab, Queries group, and we'll click Query Wizard. We'll choose Simple Query Wizard and click OK. And this is where you are asked which fields do you want in your query. And this is going to be based on the full service table. So I'm going to use the drop down table full service. And they're asking us to include all fields from the full service table. So I will click on the fast forward button here, the one that looks like a fast forward button, to include all of the fields. Click Next. Would you like a detail or summary query? And they don't really tell us here. So we're just going to stick with the default. Click Next. What title do you want for your query? Full service query. So we need to add a space between full and service, and then click Finish. Now there's no need to save because you already have the query saved here, and you'll notice that we have a new category for queries. So this is a basic query. You have all of the fields and all of the records displayed here. Now, when we get into chapter 2, you're going to learn how to modify queries to include certain criteria. We can have certain fields displayed. So all of that in chapter 2. It's going to be fun. And then since we're done, we can go ahead and close the query. Step 12, You need to refer to a printed copy of the full service table when assigning managers to accounts. Use the report wizard to create a report based on the full service table with the following options. So as before, just like with queries, we're going to go to the Create tab, Reports group, click the Report Wizard, and they're asking us which table we're going to use, and it is the full service table. So I'm going to choose Tables, Full Service. Notice how you can also choose queries as well. So the full service table, include all fields from the full service table in the report. So I'll click the fast forward button and then we'll click next. Do you want to add any grouping levels? Do not include any grouping levels. So we'll click next. What sort order do you want for your records? Part C, sort the report by contact ID in ascending order. Now, remember, with ascending order, it is smallest to largest. And with descending, it's the opposite. Descending is largest to smallest. So again, contact ID, ascending order. Click next. Part D, how would you like to lay out your report? Select tabular as the layout of the report and portrait as the orientation of the report. So we'll leave these alone here. Click next. Save the report using full service report as the name. So let me add a space between full and service. Add another space after service and we'll type report. And then we'll click finish. So here's your report. Confirm that the report matches figure 2 and then close the report. And you'll also see down here we have a new category for reports. Let's go ahead and close this. And we'll go ahead and continue. Step 13, in the navigation pane, rename the full service form using full service data entry as the new name. So if I need to rename something, right, if I need to rename an object, in this case full service, I can right click on the form here and choose rename. And again, the name is going to be full service data entry. So right click, rename, full service. Again, double check your typing and then hit enter. Save and close any open objects in your database. Compact and repair your database, close it, and then exit access. Follow the directions on the website to submit your completed report. So let's pause and go through one by one what they're asking us to do here. So first things first, save and close any open objects in your database. And you want to make sure that you do close objects after you're done working with them, especially with tables, because if you start to create queries based on certain tables, and again, due to the relationships and the fact that this is a relational database, whatever you're doing in queries can affect what's going on with the tables. So you want to make sure that you're closing objects when you're done with them. Now, what do they mean by compact and repair? Over time, as you are creating new objects, you're renaming objects, you're deleting objects, you're adding fields to tables, you're renaming fields, deleting fields, and the same with records, whether for regulatory reasons or maybe you realize that you need to keep track of other things. Well, over time, when you delete things, you're not going to necessarily get those things back. So by compacting the database, you're going to recover that storage space. Let me show you how it works here. If you go into the File tab and choose Info, you'll see Compact and Repair. Click on Compact and Repair. If for some reason Compact and Repair doesn't work, you can close out of access, relaunch your database, and then go through Compact and Repair again. Now that we're done, make sure to close completely out of access, and I can't stress this enough, close completely out of access before uploading your project. As a matter of fact, when you have your Access database open, you should see a lock file in the Windows File Explorer. Don't mess with that lock file. As soon as you close out of Access, that lock file is going to disappear. Now, at this point, we are ready to submit for grading. So we're going to come back here to SAM. Again, keep track of where you are saving your Access database. And as I've already mentioned, make sure that you are closed completely out of Access. We'll go ahead and submit. Now, with the graded summary report, you're going to see that warning again when you go to download it. All right, so here we go. And again, you're going to get this warning, click keep, and let's open the report. Now, your report is going to be under reports. There's the grading report, and you'll see 100 out of 100. Now, if you miss certain things, whether you're able to fix them depends on where you are in the project. This is why I tell you to be careful and methodical, because for certain steps, you might not be able to fix things and you'll have to start over from scratch. That's just the reality. For other things, maybe you mistyped the name. You can quickly right click and rename. If you mistyped the field name, that shouldn't be big of a deal. But remember, when you start to accumulate other objects, and let me show you here when I change the navigation pane. Let me switch to tables and related views. You can see what I'm talking about here. When you start to accumulate other objects, you can see here, for example, the full service table. Look at all the objects that depend on the full service table. This is, again, why you can't just undo things in Access. So with that, I wish you all the best. Good luck. Take your time with this. You have plenty of time to get this project done and turned in, unless you are in a compressed, accelerated course. Then make sure you use your time wisely. With that, good luck, and I'll see you in the next one for Chapter 2. It's going to be fun.